of the different jurisdiction here, of the Dayton Park Commission to order at, what are we, 9:39, 6:39. First item on the agenda is, do we have an agenda? We do.
I'm going to run out, and if not, everybody's not done.
Don't forget your microphones.
First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Could we rise? Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have one new commissioner that we need to swear in today.
We're going to have to defer that to the next meeting.
Okay.
Official swearing in, because Zach couldn't find the swearing in language. Amy's not in this week, so she's off sick today, so we haven't got that detail.
Well, either you can walk out or just hang around and listen. My name is Doug Baines, and I've been on the Park Commission since 2000 or so, a day or two. So I've got a little bit of history behind me. Anybody else care to pipe in on who you are?
Yeah, I'm John Knutson. Been on the Park Commission since the July-ish of last year. Been living in Dayton since, well, 3 years now.
And I'm Carrie Wingard. I've been in Dayton for 3 years, on the Park Commission for a year.
And yourself?
I'm Brad Cole. We've lived in Dayton for 2 years and excited to get into the team here on the next one, I guess.
Good. Great. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I motion.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, and that is the approval of the Park Commission meeting for June 6th of 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I motion.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Very good. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is open forum. Anyone here who would wish to address the Park Commission can do so. There's nobody in the audience. Is there anybody online?
Our Zoom link isn't working, so we don't have that option tonight.
Okay. We will close open forum and go on to the council update. Matt, you're up.
Yeah, just want to say welcome to our newest commission member. My name is Matt Trost, sitting city council member as of January. And no major updates from my side. The framework for the historic village was approved recently last meeting, which includes some paths and parks and trails, and they changed some of those up given the feedback from the residents. People didn't want a riverside walking path through their backyard, which it's somewhat hard to fight that one, I guess, with them. Also because of where they're at with the rising river levels, you can tell that those were put there because they look pretty. But I think we will have to have some sort of path or sidewalk system down there, and we will, but what's on there right now just wasn't correct. So we removed that for now, and we'll address it later.
What is that location?
That's the historic village
Oh, okay.
of Dayton. There was a framework plan that was approved. That's all I got.
That's all you've got.
Oh, it's budget season, which I'm sure Marty's going to talk about anyways because he's got budget stuff handed out to y'all, but we're in the middle of CIP budget, so the council's meeting early every single meeting for like an hour and a half early to go over budget items for the upcoming 24 year.
And quick question, where do we stand on park issues? Marty, did we ever put together a budget or?
Well, that's what we're discussing with the CIP for the trails tonight. So what you decide tonight is, well, we put some numbers in there. I put a copy of the CIP on your desk.
Yep.
but there are some additional numbers that we want to put in from tonight, where what we decide where we want to spend dollars. So that's how we can allocate from this. So we will discuss that when we get to that item in the agenda.
Very good.
Oh, I'll add one more, because I know you guys are going to talk about it when you talk about trails, which is I reached out to Zach to see what the current trail fund balance is. Currently, the trail fund has a balance of $2.5 million. So as you look at the trails themselves and kind of what's going on there, that was as of this morning.
How much is it again?
$2.5 million. There's an extra $20,000 in there. I just rounded it off for you.
Okay. Okay, next is our Trails priority discussion.
Okay, Commission, I put together, with the help of Stantec, the 5 priority trails that we discussed at the previous meetings. They put together some firmer prices on this with some of the issues that go along with each crossing point. And basically, this is a discussion to figure out where exactly you want to spend the $2.5 million that we've got available, and over what time frame. I did include the capital improvement plan for parks, which goes out to 2030, and you can see what the revenues are in there. Some of the dollar amounts in there are funded, particularly the water trails construction. Phase of $4 million in there is potential funding. So that should give you some idea of what we budgeted for already. There are a couple of items in here. The trail extension from Berkshire Lane to Dayton River Road to Pioneer Parkway. That was an aberration on my part. We've adjusted that today.
Oh, sorry.
So I think what we want to do today is discuss each of these segments. I've asked Jason to come along and help me answer some of your questions. He has a better insight on some of this information than I do. Jason is with Stantec, the city engineers. So I think that I've got a PowerPoint working here, well, at least at the moment. Let's see how this goes. The first trail, and these are in order of the priority that was set at the previous meeting. This segment is the segment that we talked about a lot, along north side of Dayton River Road from Balsam Lane to the Donny Galloway Park. That's to get residents from Balsam Lane across Dayton River Road and down to Donny Galloway Park. That moved quick. So what we're looking at here, there would have to be some kind of a system in there, a traffic light system, to get across a county road, but we would have to talk with the county to see if they would permit it. There's no guarantees that they're going to allow us to do that. It basically is they go through what they call a warrant system. So you accumulate points for the amount of accidents you have there, and once you reach a certain number, then they will allow a traffic signal, putting it bluntly.
I thought it was the number of people killed.
Well, I was putting it I was sweetening it a little bit there, Doug. Considerations here, crossing Dayton River Road, which is a fast traffic area with a lot of traffic on it. Multiple locations could be considered, which each of these has their own cons with it. Some portion would be constructed in Champlin, so we'd have to talk with them, see if they are willing to put any funding into this to help that last segment, or if they would even allow us to do it. We'd be working in the Hennepin County right-of-way on that stretch of road, which can be a little bit tricky. We'd have to be mindful of the drainage system in there and adapt the plans accordingly. Additional right-of-way would likely be necessary, and there would probably be some tree removals.
The cost on that is $410,000. Do you have any questions on that?
That would be on the north side of Dayton River Road?
Correct.
Yeah, Champlin already has a path that goes on that north side to
Yeah.
that, right? We're trying
Yeah,
to
you
meet
can
that
just
same
you can
path.
see it at the bottom line where we finished there. That trail goes in there and it goes into Donny Galloway Park there. So our trail would link into that existing
To
trail.
that.
That's
A
the
lot
idea.
of people take that route anyway. That's highlighted. I live in that neighborhood, and we see people walking it every morning. And
hmm
I think it'd be a good spot.
I agree. I think it's a good spot if we can try to make it work.
Of course, yeah, you get to coordinate with 3 different, the county and Champlin. But
hmm
If I may, Marty, is this part of where the Three Rivers Park District wants their Mississippi Trail? Would they help with this chunk at all? Do you know?
Their trail cross is designed to cross over to the south side at some point, and I'm not sure if it's before this or if we could convince them to keep going on the north side. So there would be some conversation with Three Rivers on this as well.
that's a good point, because Champlin has all that sidewalk on the north side that maybe they'd want to piggyback.
I think Champ already has a crosswalk to go onto the south side, right at that 40-mile-an-hour zone, where it drops to 40 right there. Don't they have one?
Yeah.
Right at South Island, is there a crosswalk there?
I think so.
Yeah, there is definitely one there. I'm not sure
Yeah.
the exact location.
Okay, so that's 410,000.
Yeah. Got 2 million left.
Can we go through all of them before we prioritize?
Yeah, that's what I think. I was going to just go through them and answer any questions at the time and see what you want to do. Segment 2 is along the north side of Dayton River Road from Cloquet Overlook Park to 142nd Avenue. This is a bigger chunk of change. It's 1,090,000. There's no crossings on this particular section. The other agencies that we would be working with would be Hennepin County, and we would probably be working with Three Rivers Park District on this section also, as is part of their West Mississippi Regional Trail. We currently own an 8.3 foot wide strip of land along Dayton River Road in this area. What would need to occur in Hennepin County right of way again, so that would be some discussion with them to see how that would work. The right of way is on their side of the road on some of this area. Well, they own both sides of the road really, but
Marty, when those lots, and there's three or four properties in there, when that was developed, didn't they put in some right-of-way or
that's on the south
something?
side of the road, I believe.
So I've got it up, and Zach and I were looking at this earlier, Marty. We've got just over 10 feet of right-of-way in the north side of the road there. That's in the city of Dayton's ownership. That goes all the way from that road, all the way up to the ravine that they just did.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you about this one, because I'm trying to understand why we need county approval to work in our right-of-way that we own the land on.
Can
The whole stretch we own. I got it
with
up.
that?
You'd still encroach into their, you need a permit within, to work within the right of way, because you certainly have to disrupt it. Oh, sorry. Just being in that proximity, it would almost certainly, the work would spill into theirs. It'd just be a work and right of way permit to complete it. They would have authority to review for stormwater concerns and or other, but to be honest, I'd be surprised if they had strong opposition to us constructing a trail in there, as long as it meets the trail requirements set forth by MnDOT and the other guidance manuals.
And based on that price, what's the cost to get across the ravine there? How you plan on managing the ravine to get up to Cloquet Overlook?
So these are high-level costs. I will repeat that throughout the night.
Yeah.
They're just some.
I mean, high level, you had to have an idea of how you're going to get across it, right? So
It hasn't even been reviewed, so they just replaced that culvert. And despite our 2-year effort for asking them to extend the culvert such that it could support a road widening as well as trails on both sides, they reported back at 90% plans and said that they are expandable to accommodate these in the future. So it hasn't been looked at close enough if there is enough room to do it without additional modifications to the storm sewer. There may be some dollars in there to allot towards that. I haven't gone through these in detail. I just got these at 2 o'clock today. So I haven't gone through them in a lot of detail. It's our office that put them together, but I wasn't involved in the preparation of them. So I expect with the $1.2 million, it probably has some provisions in there for getting around that portion of it. But if there is an extension of the culvert needed, that could add additional cost.
And that is, the culvert was put in by Three Rivers Park, right?
Hennepin County.
Hennepin County.
Yeah, just this year. In fact, they had the 6 locations. They had the road closed in different parts.
Right.
The first part of the summer, I'll say.
Well, it's so nice that they're working with us. Okay, on to the next.
Segment 3 is along north side of North Diamond Lake Road to Vinewood Lane, and along northeast side of Vinewood down to 140th Avenue North, which is the Pineview Meadows development. So give some access into there and other trail opportunities. There's a crossing at North Diamond Lake Road. That's not a great place for a crossing because it's so close to the intersection of Dayton River Road and North Diamond Lake Road. That's the drawback with that. Working on North Diamond Lake Road is a county road, so again we would be working with Hennepin County. There would be some additional right-of-way required along North Diamond Lake Road, at least across a couple of properties there. Right-of-way along Vinewood Lane is around 60 feet wide in most locations. Would need to acquire right-of-way trail easement. Could save some cost if we were to utilize Vinewood Lane for trail traffic rather than a separate trail. Again, there's no existing trail down Vinewood, so it'd be on the street down there. But we could get the trail along North Diamond Lake Road and across down into Vinewood. Now, this is $900,000 is the estimated cost.
Is that down Vinewood would get you down to the boardwalk or not?
You could get to the boardwalk down here. What this section is doing is accessing the trails in Pineview Meadows.
Oh, I see, okay.
And then that takes you out onto the Pineview and up into the park area and stuff like that.
Right. It would also take you to the trail that's on South Diamond that then can get you up to Elm Creek.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we were looking at it, was we were trying to get all the people that are in this neighborhood up above and to the left a safe way to get over to
Carrie,
Elm
I'll add
Creek.
in reverse as
Yeah.
Elsie Stevens becomes kind of our main central park right now, for lack of an actual one in the center of the city where we have, say, Dayton Heritage Day fireworks displays. I think it would help people from go the opposite way
Go the
as well. So
opposite
people don't have
way.
to drive up
Yeah.
there. They could bike up there, go see the fireworks, do all the family event stuff, and then bike home, which I think will help because we have limited parking up there right now as it is at the park. And so I think that would be helpful both directions.
For sure. I
the,
agree.
The other thing I was going to bring up, Marty, is eventually there'll be, where Vinewood comes in there, there'll be a road that cul-de-sacs there. I don't know how much the cost is to run the path down North Diamond, but we could try to work with the developer to see, because there's like a property split right there, see if they'll give us 4 feet of easement on both sides of that property split, and then run it straight to where the cul-de-sac will end up being, and that would save us, because there'll be sidewalks in that new neighborhood, so then we could connect. Does that make sense? So basically, you go through right here, where the cul-de-sac's going to be.
Okay, yeah.
So we could try to work with the builder and see if they give us easement, and we wouldn't need this whole long stretch. We could just hop into this, which is all sidewalked away.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So
So
our-
take off that lump of trail there.
I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying if the committee wants to, or the council wants to, we can talk to the developer and
it
see
makes
if they'll give
sense.
us, because there's 2 properties that almost line up right there, and if they'll give us 4 feet of easement on both sides to run it, I'm assuming it's only going to add value to that development too, because it's easy access into Three Rivers Park District. So
Right. That makes sense. So my question is, looking at segment 2 and segment 3, it's the same neighborhood that we're trying to put these trails on. So we have one on the north side, and then we have this other one to Vinewood. Am I missing something? Like, why do we need both? Can we
I
do
think what
one
we're
or
looking
the
at
other?
from number 2, if I can get back to 2, is linking the neighbourhood to the right there through the trail that goes through the park there, giving them some access up the river road to the trail. So all those people in that neighbourhood would have access to some trails other than just going around their neighbourhood.
Right.
So it's
I
going
thought
under
that
Pine View's expensive. I think it's like $2 million per tunnel.
Right,
And we
I
have a
remember
tunnel.
that.
We have a tunnel already under Dayton Road. The Pine View under Dayton Road at LC Stevens
at
Park.
LC Stevens, but doesn't this neighborhood get to that tunnel?
No.
No, right now this neighborhood
Yeah.
over here is where Doug lives over here. So there's no
Okay.
way to get
Okay, I'm
across
just
Dayton
thinking the
River Road.
other
Right. No,
neighborhood
we have,
then.
we have Rivers
Okay.
Bend.
correct
Yeah.
Rivers Bend Park, and then
And
there's
Leathers.
and others. Yep, I think that's
Okay.
And the disc golf course,
it. Correct. Yeah.
Wildwood Springs.
Okay, I was looking at the wrong
But otherwise,
neighborhood.
it's kind of isolated
Yeah,
without
yeah.
crossing the
So
road.
So again, I think this one's nice because it allows same reason if you're going to have families want to try to see the fireworks, they can bike up, get up. Just using a repeating example, but allows more people access to LC Stevens, which I think is a good thing. And
Yeah.
that
It's
neighborhood
what we
is
were trying to
Safeway.
do,
Yep. To get to Three Rivers too. Yeah.
and to get to LC. So it makes sense
Yep.
now. Thanks
Yeah.
for clearing that up.
Great question.
Okay. Do you want to move on to segment 4? This is up by Sundance and Rush Creek Territorial Trail. It's a section from Territorial Trail up to Rush Creek Road to link those 3 developments together. There's $830,000 cost to this. The crossings are, she's got none here. There is one minor crossing across French Lake Road, but that's not a major crossing. There are no other agencies to work with on this. We would need to buy some additional right-of-way easement to make this work.
I don't have any questions on this one.
Segment 5 is a segment along 129th Avenue between Pineview Lane and Jonquil Lane to link those 2 areas together. Gives residents access from Hayden Hills via a trail that goes on to Jonquil Lane. That would give those people the opportunity to come down here, get onto this section of trail and go down Pineview or cross into the park from there. Estimate cost is $660,000. There's no particular street crossings there. We would have to work with Hennepin County again on the right-of-way and the stormwater issues there. There are significant wetland impacts. That area is very wet, and there's a big system that goes into the Three Rivers Park District from there. There's significant grading work would be required. Both ends of this segment currently have crossings into the park. So I think that this would be a lot of work with Hennepin County to make this work.
And this doesn't include us any crossings. This just ties into the traffic circle, right?
Second?
We wouldn't be building a crossing here. We would
No,
just
there's-
tie into the roundabout, which has access.
Well, there is already a crossing at Jonquil anyway into the park. It's a central median crossing, a elevated median.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just give my opinion. This section to me doesn't seem, unless I'm missing something, it doesn't seem real important because of the fact that you can get up to trails by both ends. Like, I don't see the need for those 2 to connect. when we first talked about it, the very first time we were talking about putting a trail on this road, it was because we wanted to try to do it further down, closer to Champlin, because of the fact that they have a trail that goes to the end of some new development, and then we have a bunch of closer to Arrowhead and Forest View Circle. We had kind of wanted to try to help them get connected. At least that's what I am remembering, is we were trying to get them connected to that other entrance, because we have 3 entrances on that road to Elm Creek. Is that making sense what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do remember we had that conversation, and I think that there was some issues because inside the neighborhood there's no trails as such in their development at all. This would maybe take some traffic down there. And I think that we talked about that segment having a lot of drainage and stormwater issues because the ditch there is the fall off on that is very shallow. So it might be difficult for us to maintain the stormwater flow in that area.
Okay. Okay, that was just where my main concern was, because when I drive on that road, I see kids running on it all the time, down closer to that end. And so that's where I was hoping we could maybe make it safer for people. But I don't really see the need for it up at the top right there. I think we could use our money better in a different way.
So that's the 5 segments. I guess we need some discussion on what you guys think.
Marty, could we go back to segment 3? I live in Rivers Bend area, close to Rivers Bend Park, and Hazel and I, she has more control of me than anyone. That's my dog.
Okay.
We come down Pineview and then turn east. So we don't go across Pineview because it's too crazy. But what I do is I turn on 140th, on Pineview Trail, and take that over to Oakview, take that around to 140th, and then that to Norwood. And at Norwood and Dayton River Road, there is a crosswalk and signs.
There is.
Yeah.
I was there and I saw a car actually slow down. I was quite struck.
Well, literally, I hope.
So once you get across Dayton River Road, you can take Norwood to the south, and that connects to a trail that goes into the soccer fields.
Yeah.
And you can turn before that and come out on, it would be,
I think it's another Norwood.
you'd come out, I think, on 137th. There you can go across Pineview and at a controlled intersection.
That's the one by Pineview Meadows. Is that
Yeah.
the control? Yeah, that's got to be that one. So you got that trail there that goes up Pineview to South Diamond, then you can cross South Diamond and carry up on Pineview if you want to on that new trail, yeah,
Right.
and get into the Park District.
So from there you can work around and pick up the boardwalk.
Mm-hmm.
Take the boardwalk around to Vinewood. Go up Vinewood then to North Diamond Lake Road. And then you need to get from North Diamond Lake Road across the road. And if you keep on going through that small neighborhood, it terminates in Rivers Bend Park.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yep.
It would be nice if we could, I don't know, maybe do an intersection crosswalk, paint the road or something there at North Diamond Lake Road and Main
Vinewood.
River Road.
Do you mean North Diamond and Vinewood, or
He said with North Diamond and Dayton River Road, which is the highest, in a bad way, rated intersection in the city.
We get a lot of calls there.
Yeah.
Well, good.
It's the worst intersection in the city per the accident reports that happened there.
So we
probably
shouldn't-
we don't want a crosswalk there then,
Add some excitement to it.
if we can't put lights because of it being a county road.
Yeah, just a note, I think you're going to be hard pressed to get any crossings approved on any county roads for that matter. Even the ones that have the striping probably wouldn't be allowed if they were to be proposed today.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
very opposed to it. They do like them at controlled intersections, certainly, which we don't have any of those, at least not four-way stops. So just to keep in mind, I mean, that's another one to note, getting across North Diamond Lake Road at Vinewood connection. Great connection to be made. It brings whole neighborhoods together. But given the proximity to River Road, I don't expect that the county would allow a mid-block crossing there. Sight distance is a huge factor of that, and the fact that it's on a bend and it's close to an intersection, I think, would be a big detriment to that application. Certainly can move forward and propose it, but I wouldn't expect very promising response.
Makes you
on
really question what the priorities are by the county.
inside the ring, maybe? No. They don't have any identified here that have made their CIP. So despite requesting projects on their CIP, we haven't not got any added. We did get funding towards Pineview because it was identified as a safety concern, which they do have a couple of those on their radar, this being one of them, and I think Pineview and River Road being another one, which I haven't been able to go through the information yet, but I did receive something about a striping effort that might be done there. So that's good news, so we might be able to look at that a little bit closer. But other than those, we've asked them to rate a couple of the other intersections, and they say they score a 0. We'll come back later when the warrants might be there. Those being Territorial and 81 and Balsam and River Road. Prior to development, we asked them to evaluate both of those to see if they'd use projections for improvements, and they wouldn't. They say that the actual data has to be there. In other words, you need the accidents, you need the congestion, you need the injuries, you need the property damage before it'll be warranted. They can't do it on projected traffic or usage, which is a frustrating thing, but how they handle it.
Okay.
So
So out of the 5 proposals, how would we prioritize those 5 items? It seems like 1 and 1 and 2 are very similar to each other, right? Or they're very close to the same neighborhood?
They're kind of either end of that
Yeah, they're
chunk of
on the
neighborhoods
two.
that span. Because 1 is the other end by the PDQ, and 2 is more up towards you.
So all of these are in the northeast quadrant.
I think the last one is Territorial
the-
Trail.
Territorial and Sundance?
Ah. Are we overlooking something in the west neighborhood, west quadrant?
These, I'm going with what the Park Commission selected before to go with, so that I presume that's already been factored in to this.
most of the west is like 2050 plus or 2050, right? So there's not a lot of someone's gonna email me later and tell me I'm wrong, but there's not a lot of I'm gonna phrase this properly. A majority of the growth and development the city is seeing is either down near Sundance Greens and Territorial or up in the northeast quadrant. And the money that funds the parks trails fund comes from new homes being built. So as we get less homes being built, the fund won't go up as much. We had a big boom last few years, why the fund is so high. I don't think we have, and Marty, you would know better than I would, but I don't think we have a lot of development going on the west side of town.
No, not currently, no. Not I'm aware of.
Other than like Graco and stuff, but that's not.
Yeah, non-residential, certainly. And to be honest, they're all installing trails with those projects.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah. So
I just don't want to get a resident sideways because we're playing favorites.
because everyone that lives in the city lives in the northeast quarter that's here today. Okay.
I mean, the other part to consider is much of the Northeast is, while increased in density, is older, if you will. So those are neighborhoods that were constructed without sidewalks, without a trail vision. Those in the South, the first ones took place in 2011, 2012. Mm-hmm. So those have all been built with internal and connecting trails or plans for connecting trails. So, I mean, the way of looking at it is, where do you want to allot your dollars? And it seems advantageous to put those where you make the connections for the most residents. Well, a lot of the newer developments, they have those connections. Yes, they need extensions, but these are intended to bring those that have no connections now. So it makes sense that they're concentrated in the Northeast. Certainly exceptions, but that would be largely built looking for those connections.
You might also look at it as like Sundance Greens is right near Three Rivers Park District. Granted, getting across Fernbrook is no small feat, don't get me wrong. But if we're trying to help people get to, say, L.C. Stevens, if that's what the goal is to get people to that park, they can jump in Three Rivers Park District and get all the way up to Pineview Meadows right now and almost get there. And so if that's the goal, is to get people access to, and like you said, they could even go a different way and they could cross Dayton Road. I would argue that I wouldn't want to cross Fernbrook or Dayton Road with my child, just to be 100% clear. Both of those are bad roads, I think, to cross. But I think, we've got a way to get under Dayton Road, which I think is what we're trying to utilize with the plan that the commission's previously kind of looked at and Marty's re-bringing forth.
Anybody want to take a stab at prioritizing the 5 proposals?
Well, I think number 2 is a great one to get us into LC.
Could you repeat that again?
I think number 2, segment 2, is a great one to be able to get a bunch of people into that area for all those parks, Cloquet and L.C. Stevens. So I would say that would be my top.
I could just note on that one does not include any county road crossings, which is helpful for implementation, certainly. Mm-hmm. And another positive note, I guess a couple of them potentially, that is the alignment of the Three Rivers Park District Trail. I don't know if they'd be looking at partnering or participating financially in those improvements now until it reaches what they call regional significance. However, that might be an option to get some funding that way. And then additionally, if there is improvements done at North Diamond Lake Road and River Road such that a crossing could be installed there, that would be a great connection in more than one way. Getting from Vinewood to that intersection, allowing the crossing, that accomplishes a lot at that point for direct routes to both L.C. Stevens Park as well as the Elm Creek Park.
I think if I were to prioritize them, I would go 1, 2, 4, 3. Only putting 3 at the end because of that kind of crossing issue being so close to the other intersection.
was your 1, 2, 4, 3?
Yes. And then 5, I guess, would be at the end. But I agree with Carrie that one seems less impactful, less valuable.
What do you think, Doug?
I would go 2, 3, 1, 4, 5. Anybody else want to pipe in?
So
So what's, you said 2 was your priority. Have you got any other?
Yeah. So I would do 2, and then to help another area, I'd probably say 4, and then 1. I'd kind of like to see how 2 and 3 can help each other before I just go in and do both of those, because they just seem like, I mean, the one trail goes all the way to that intersection. So if we can find a way to cross somewhere on there.
Which road when you say cross, Carrie?
So, well, it just looks like when I look, unless I'm seeing the map wrong, on segment 2, it looks like it goes all the way down.
It's like here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's so close, and if we can't cross, I just wonder how we can't try to tie those together somehow. But there's no way, I guess is what you're saying.
I would ask Jason, but based on what Jason previously said, we're trying to get crossings, and that's that intersection we talked about. That's really bad. So trying to get people across there. Jason, thoughts?
Again, it's the complete jurisdiction of the county, actually on both legs on this one, being those are both county roads. I don't want to say impossible, but I think it's going to be a challenge to get approvals for it.
On this one, though, if we can get it from that cul-de-sac that's going to end, we don't have to go down North Diamond then, if we can get that approved by the builder. You know what I'm talking about? So if you look behind you where those houses, you can kind of see where the road's going to go there.
So up through behind the guy in the corner?
No, like straight out. Instead of where it crosses South or North Diamond there, just go straight out. There'll be a cul-de-sac right there anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to go over the guy that lives in the corner. You can just butt right in that new development that's going in.
Yeah, if anybody takes time to look at, if you look at this guy, there's not as much right of way allotted on his property, and then he has very dense coniferous trees planted for very good screening. Any trail along this entire length of the corner would require removal of those trees. I think it's going to be difficult unless he plans on relocating to acquire any easements to accomplish that. So I think you'd have to stick to the other sides. But like you're saying, you'd actually be west of his property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Into that new development that isn't, it's plotted but not built yet.
Potentially, I don't know. The right-of-way would be a challenge. Those are already platted, and they'd only have, although there's a water main running through there, isn't there? So we could go on the water main route.
We could work with the builder, though, to see if he, because there's like a property split right near there that he might be able to go 4 feet on each property.
Oh, sure, if there's, okay.
You know what I'm talking about there?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, so
I can't picture the split.
This will be like a cul-de-sac right here.
Yep,
And so there's like a pre-plotted property that goes like right here.
okay.
And if we get 4 feet on each side, then you could just drop it there.
Is it between two houses being planned?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there'd be enough room in there. So for like an 8-foot trail, you'd probably want at least a 12-foot. We could look at it.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly where it is. There's a water main that goes between the houses, and when that happens, we have a wider easement.
Oh, okay.
That gives us more room for a trail, so we could probably coordinate the two, which would be it would make things a lot easier.
But are you saying that you don't think the county will let us put a crosswalk across North Diamond?
I think it'd be really hard.
What if we just drop the trail on both sides and don't actually put the crosswalk in?
I like that thinking.
I mean,
They
let's
do
be
have the
honest.
authority to come and remove it if we don't.
True, but the county just closes roads, doesn't tell us, so you know they don't really care. Easier to ask for forgiveness and permission sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a tough location. I mean, it's something we can certainly bring to their attention and see how fast they say no. I mean, Berkshire would probably be a higher consideration, although that creates a lot of its own challenges as well. Just getting from that location to Berkshire, but yeah, unfortunately, the high-speed crossings are really difficult. I mean, the other means to put them in, and they've given it a new name now, but there's kind of different levels of treatment, if you will. You have the white blocks with the crossings, and then you have the signage, the advanced signage, and then you have the blinking lights, like we have here on Pine View and one by Dayton Elementary, to increase driver awareness. And then the next step up from that is what used to be called a Hawk signal. It's something that's called something different than that now. I know, like, there's one on Main Street in Anoka. There's quite a few of them. There's one on 12 in Maple Plain. I know they're probably all over, and I just don't notice them. But they're an actual stop condition, so the user is able to hit it, and they're a solid red and requiring vehicles to stop for the crossing. I think there's one on 169 now that I think of it too. But those are about $120,000 too. So if they are even allowed, which I don't know if they would be in this proximity to the intersection, just because any backups could back up cars onto River Road and cause further problems. But even if they were allowed, they're very costly alternatives. And that's just for the electronics. That's on top of the trail and the other. So just things to know. These crossings are really difficult. Same with the I forget the option now, if it's
So
one.
is the county trying to drift us or guide us to the tunnel?
Oh, for sure. I mean, grade separation is by far the safest and the preferred method. So anytime you can have a tunnel or a bridge, both very expensive and very limited, especially the tunnels, very limited on where you can accomplish those, because you need approach grades that are able to get the water out. Otherwise, you just have a swimming tube for people if you don't have low grades on the side. So if you can picture like Fernbrook down, if you go just south of Sundance Green, so you get into Maple Grove and you go down the hill, and then there's the creek under there, that will be an underpass when Three Rivers brings their regional trail through, just because the topography works. Same with the River Hills development, very low on both sides of it, and the road's up high, so they can punch through it with the 10-foot culvert.
The other piece to think of is that intersection. It looks like in the CIP plan 26 is when we are hoping to get a roundabout there, assuming that the county will let us. So just something else for the Parks Commission to think about.
For that North Diamond.
Yeah, it's on this. That's why I pulled this out. It's on our CIP budget. As of now, we're still working through it, but in 26, that hopefully get a roundabout.
So it might be worth waiting on that one.
Yeah, I mean you could still do it. Yeah, because then you might just bring it up to Vinewood, and then you'll be good to go.
Right. All right. Well then, thanks for that additional info. I would rate them 2, 1, 4, 3, 5. John, what did you say yours were?
1, 2, 4, 3, 5.
And then Doug, what did you say?
2, 3, 1, 4, 5.
And Marty, do you know? I know our new commission member can't officially vote, but he could weigh in if
Yeah,
Mr.
that's what I
Baines
was
is okay,
gonna
if the
ask.
committee's okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with 2, 1, 3. Those would be the most impactful ones.
Can you say that again, please?
2, 1, and 3 would be
2,
the,
1.
I think budget-wise, that would be pretty close. Just get 2 of them. Or maybe we can do all 3.
So that's 2.3 million. Is it?
3, yeah.
And we have a total of 2.5, so bingo. How do we know from Three Rivers what they're going to do and how we could hitchhike with them?
Well, once we get this, once we decide on what we want to do, then we start negotiations with Three Rivers Park District and see what their time frame looks like and see if they want to partner with us on this and see where their CIP numbers are. If they can include that section in with there, and we would probably build it and then they would reimburse us for it.
Are you? Go ahead,
Oh,
Karen.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, is the goal, if this is what's decided on, is 213, would the goal be to get done next year?
Well, we'll have to there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but it might be spread over a couple of years, just so we don't deplete all the money in the fund as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Like, are we wanting to use the whole budget right now if we know that most of our budget has come from new housing and that's slowing down? So is it worth leaving some as a leeway to help us as we make decisions in the future? I mean, I don't know. This is my first time on a commission. I'm
Well,
just asking.
I think
This
it makes
fund
sense.
can only be used for trails, so we can either use it for new trails and save some, in case something else happens. I'm sure that Zach wouldn't want us to deplete the whole fund. I'm sure the council probably wouldn't want either. That we should have something in there left.
So if that's
And there
the
will be
case-
some money coming in over the next couple of years. I think there's still some revenues coming in, and if house building comes back up, then that's going to really help us. But I don't think, just me personally, I don't think that we need to, use everything now. But we could spread these projects over a couple of years.
Right.
So I think, to Marty's point, you could plan to spend 2.4, but spread it over 3 years. And so because you're spreading it out, you can always make a change, a recommended change to the council, and say, we wanted to do this, but this came up, we'd rather spend the money here, because it wouldn't have been spent yet. So,
Right.
and that's why I was asking the timing. Carrie, it was the same thought process as if you're spreading it out. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think we have to get something down so we at least have a talking point with Three Rivers Park.
Well,
To
and
know
we have to get in the
where
budget.
they're going.
We have to get it in the CIP in the right year. So it's important to know what order you want them in, so Marty can make sure that they're on the CIP, and he can help space those out a little bit. So maybe 2 of them next year, and then 1 the following year to space those out over the between 24 and 25. Because they won't get done this year; it's too late. I'm guessing, Marty, in the season to be trying to create paths and asphalt and all that kind of.
Well, there's still a lot of stuff to do from the engineering aspect of stuff, and there's a lot of conversations to be had with different agencies and stuff like that.
Plus, oftentimes they'll say this is a $1 million project, and it comes back at 1.2, 1.3.
Yeah.
Or 1.8, because you have to build a fancy bridge across the ravine. Who knows?
So these numbers, like Jason alluded to at the very start, these still need to be refined a long way. So as we go through this process, and once you identify your top 3 or whatever, then we'll start refining those and seeing what is feasible, what the true costs are going to be, and what we might get for assistance from other agencies.
Right. I think the whole thing, for me, it hinges pretty directly on what kind of support we can get from other jurisdictions. Anything, what else do we need to go? Is this it? Can we move on, or?
You need a finalized order, right, Marty?
Yeah. So So I just need to finalise which way we're going with this. Is it going to be 2, 1, and 3? Is the 3 that we're going to look at,
I'll go with that.
2, 1, and 3, or 2, 3, and 1?
or whichever way they come out? So I got more votes for 2 as being a priority.
Yeah.
2 is fine with me.
Yep.
2, I'd say, is the top, because when I wrote down everybody's thing, 3 of us said 2 was our top one.
So I think it might be 2, 1, and then 3. I'm thinking. Looking at those. So that's what I'll do. We'll go through those, see what the next steps are. We will get some preliminary numbers put on the CIP, so we've got a placeholder in place. And then we'll take it from there.
Do y'all want to keep 5 in there? I know Carrie had said she didn't think we needed the. Maybe I'm misparaphrasing Carrie, but number 5 was kind of like we really don't need that. Because you guys could also say we just want to remove that from the list of them, versus keeping it on and budgeting for it.
I say remove it, but that's my opinion. I don't know what
I'd
everybody
say
else.
remove it. I don't know.
If it's worth it, I would be in favor of removing that. There's a lot of challenges that I don't think have been identified there. There's utility boxes, there's overhead lighting, there's significant wetland impacts and storm drainage. We actually looked at that corridor when the Pineview project went with the roundabout, including the crossing at John Quill. Our thought was to try to bring everything down to Forest View and get the crossing there because the trailhead is immediately across the road, and just getting there was such a challenge, which included this segment. So it's I am suspicious that cost estimate might not even cover the beginning of it. So I think that would be a challenging one, and I think, like was pointed out, there's a connection immediately south of here. Yes, not quite as direct, but you have crossings at both ends of that, and you can connect just to the south. So it's not really connecting new users, it's just creating a shortcut, if you will.
Right.
So 213, remove 4, no, remove 5.
Yeah.
And then what do we do with 4?
I'll keep that on there, and then we'll put some numbers in the CIP as a placeholder, but that'll probably be 3, maybe 4 years out. Let's see where that all pans out.
So 4 would be added later.
Yeah, we'll still keep it live as a placeholder on the CIP list, and put
Okay.
a number in there. That might change later on, but that gives us a little bit of flexibility.
Yep.
Really focus on the next couple of years.
I'll just make a side note on that one since you gave me a microphone. So that connection on 4, just to note, there's some significant grading that goes along with that one too. It probably is reflected in the cost on this one because it's not a tremendous stretch, but on French Lake Road and Territorial going to the west, there's a significant hill there. And additionally, just to the east, it doesn't show up well on the aerial here, but there's a pretty significant ditch that actually creates the flood zone for the entire area north and east of here. I don't know what that crossing would look like. It doesn't look like there's room to support a trail, so I think that might get pretty spendy there. And the other thing I would mention is that west of East French Lake Road, there's 3 properties there that are kind of that knockout, if you will, of Territorial Trail, the development. At one time, they were all under contract for development. And I say that because that probably means that not too far into the future, they'll probably be under contract again because they were at least all interested at one time. If that's done, that grading gets done as part of the project, the right-of-way gets dedicated, and it significantly drops your costs. You probably even get the trail constructed as part of it. Similarly, that property that is bound to the south with Elm Creek Road and Territorial Road, he is looking at selling. He's been looking at selling for quite a while. It's a difficult property to develop, but nonetheless, he is looking to sell, and there could be some road alignments that are done through there. So if the trail were built today, most likely they'd get wiped out when that intersection is redone. And similarly, the trail probably just gets built with the project when something does occur there. So I could have said that in a lot fewer words by just saying if you were to hold on that one, you're probably getting a lot better price. So that's a good one to put on the bottom of your priority.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to identify it, and
It's a great connection. I mean, it certainly is.
okay.
Okay, are we good with that?
Next is the PIP for 2024 concept presentation.
Okay, Commission. We've been working with Paul Kangas a little bit this year to come up with concept plans for particularly 2 parks. The next phase of Elsie Stevens and what I'm calling the 4 Four Corners Park, which is Neighbourhood Park 21, off of 117th. It's between the two Braeburn Trails and Sundance Woods, Sundance Greens properties. There are four pieces of land that are going to be put together to make one big neighbourhood park there. The other property that we'll be working with is at the neighbourhood park in Iron Gardens and Cypress Cove, that was deeded to, were given to the city once, through some various HOA things. So Paul has pulled together a couple of concepts. I think it'd be best if Paul talks his way through these.
I will do it in my best British accent.
Please don't.
More than anything tonight, we want to get feedback and ideas. The plans that are in your packet and up on the screen are very preliminary ideas. Elsie Stevens, as Marty mentioned, has already had Phase 1 and Phase 2 implemented, but it is a very important park, and Councilmember Trost's comment, I think, are very applicable. We want to get people here. It's a really special place, and there's some neat opportunities ahead. There is another master plan that was done some years ago that focuses more effort down here, but this is a really big project, an event center, possibly 8-figure, certainly 5 to 8 million, possibly more, if you start building buildings and creating big parking lots. So the drawing that I have on the screen today really focuses on the west half and some of the opportunities that exist there. And I can't urge you enough to think outside the box and give me and Marty some ideas on what you think can be done. We've spent a lot of time at this park implementing this new access point here and the roadway that leads you down to the future river access. So this is mostly built now. The trail, except for the bridges, are all in. We ran into some snags with the bridges, and I can share more information with you about that as we go, but those are still intended to take place. But Three Rivers Park District has taken control of this now, and they're going to add this bridge to a future construction effort. And then we, as the city, still need to figure out how we can implement this. And we've just gotten pricing back from a contractor. This one is proving to be a little more challenging than we'd all prefer. So that's why it's in red. It's not built yet. So anything in gray or on the aerial photo underneath or in black is built. In red are some new ideas that we want to discuss with you tonight. Some of the, this is a very nice park that has some unique challenges. The horse barn is here and not in the greatest of condition. The stone foundations from the old barn sits here, not in the best condition. The silo is here and in pretty good condition. And then the grain bins are these two circles here. And all of those have some really interesting opportunities to respect the history of the site, and Dayton as a prior rural area now undergoing development. And I did a Google search on silo renovations and grain bin renovations, and those are in your packet, I believe, right, Marty?
Yep.
Yes. And then the narrative that I helped put together talks about some of the opportunities for that. And there are many, and their cost varies widely. The one that I thought was most interesting was the silo as an observation tower. And I have no idea what that means from an ADA or getting people to the top of it, but think of how cool it would be to be able to be up and looking out over the top of a silo, seeing the river valley, seeing the entire park below you. The grain bins, I included some photos of some very famous grain bins, Magnolia, Chip and Joanna Gaines, if you're HGTV people. There's some interesting things we could do with that as far as performance area or glamping cabins. And now's the time to think big, I guess, is what I would encourage you. The runes for the barn, we need to take a look at those structurally. Some of the stones are pretty loose. It's currently filled with a bunch of tree debris that needs to go away, generated during both the last project and as well as just kind of a common area for some debris. But you know, that talks to that history. It speaks to the history of the park site, and I think there's some opportunity, artistic or functional, I don't know yet. So this whole tan area, it's guided on the previous master plan as a future play area. There is a really nice playground in River Hills, not that far from this park site. So I think that future playground or play element, if they're court games, we have to understand what that means, why people are coming here versus River Hills. There are no homes immediately, or very few homes immediately adjacent to this park. So I view it as more of a destination park. So we have to have enough people, enough mass to warrant generating that future play area. The adjacency to the river is this park's greatest attribute. The view from phase one, if you're sitting underneath the pergola structure that's there, or down on the stage of the performance area and these limestone, I mean, it's an amazing view. We used to hold some of our project meetings at the picnic table and just gaze out over the river. It's an incredible place, and there's lots of opportunity to connect to that on both sides. This red blob, the idea of a larger, perhaps rentable picnic shelter for family reunions, weddings, something that would allow you to be close to the river but not immediately adjacent. This is a small little overlook that we just created last year. There's some stone seating areas. There's a little bit of pavement. There will be some picnic tables if they ever show up, Marty. It is August, so we'll ask Brooks about that. But there's been really long delays on park furniture of all things. You can't get benches and picnic tables for some reason. But the idea of having a little drop-off so that you could unload your coolers, and maybe this is disabled or short-term parking where grandma can get there easier. It's a little bit off the road. It's kind of tucked in some scattered woods that are there, but the idea of clearing out some corridors that you could see to the river from that area, and then of course connect to the trails that we've already implemented. Maybe there's a volleyball court or horseshoes or beanbag. I mean, any sort of activity that you might have associated with that type of gathering. It sits up relatively high. There's lots of shade with the scattered woods. So that was one idea. You all know what picnic shelters look like, so I didn't include those photos, but this could be a really nice spot. The future river access as part of the Water Trails project, there's been some preliminary design done, some preliminary estimates, but that was the goal of creating this parking area and getting people as close to the river as possible. But we still have to make that final connection down to the water. And the water varies widely. It bounces a lot in this area. So right now it's very low. It's quite a drop from that parking lot down. Sometimes it's very high and right at the top of the bank, like it was this spring.
Yep.
And then the parking, and the parking would only be needed once a bigger element is here. There's probably, what do we have, maybe a dozen stalls between the angled parking here and then some parallel parking on this south edge. There's parking over here, limited, and then the turf, the grass area is used for those once or twice a year functions right now. Mm-hmm. So, going to the narrative, the historic horse barn, I've cautioned Marty maybe more than once, if that is a historic building and if you wanted to seek public funding, grant funding for it, it really ties your hands moving forward. Once you commit to that, then you have to spend the money to protect it. And
that is for, you're speaking of the barn?
Yeah, the horse barn. The structure that's still standing, not the ruins of the foundation.
Is the barn on our property?
Yes. Barely, but yes.
Yes. Yes, definitely is.
So, you know, if it's deemed worthy of protection, and I'm not trying to say that it should or it shouldn't, if you go down that path and you accept those historic preservation dollars, then you're all in, and you gotta do what it takes to maintain that structure. So, make sure it's worth that effort. The silo, again, the structural integrity, the lines rating, I'm seeing some type of really cool pergola structure that radiates out from it, with the seating areas underneath, hopefully in combination with the playground, you know. Maybe it is an observation tower if you can get people up to it, but, you know, that's a big price tag, obviously. So.
I was going to say, the community that I moved from had an observation tower and a silo in a park that overlooked water, and people were up in it all the time.
Yep.
I think it's an awesome feature.
Yeah. I can't think of too many in the metro that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's other examples across the country, but, you know, that could be a special element.
They also had murals inside of it for history.
Mm-hmm.
Because you talked about murals, but then the pictures you showed kind of had them on the outside. They had them on the inside, so as you walked up, it kind of went through time. So you'd have stuff that you could do in the inside, too, to look at, to bring the history of Dayton in.
Mm-hmm. The ruins that I talked about, the fieldstone foundations for the barn, that's this area right here. It's very, the grade comes up on the south. Almost all of that's buried. It's really only exposed on the east and the west, and then it's open on the north. So some chunk of the east or the west walls would be the part that might be able to stay. I talked with Marty one time, maybe it's, you know, serves as the wall holding up a shed roof shade structure or picnic shelter or something, but I went out there just last week and took some of the photos. Did I put those in there? No, I didn't. I took some photos just for my own records, and there's some pretty loose stones, and you'd really want to make sure that they are intact. Some of the other ideas that were talked about back with the previous master plan was climbing wall or somehow integrating it into the playground.
I think that stonework really isn't that the ramp to the second floor?
Yep.
On the south side, yep. The stonework is the foundation of the old barn, but yeah, on the south side it's ramped up to what it would have been the second floor.
That's where it was ramped up. That's why it's so high there.
Yep.
But the rest of it is just the base of it.
When I fiddled with this many years ago, I had the vision of the silo, and the other structures were so weak, in my opinion, that I didn't consider those. But I think we need to grab a hold of one thing, and I think it's the silos, because the silo is the strongest item and the one that can be preserved. And I love the idea of a spiral staircase going up to an observation area. If that can be done legally, I'm sure it can be done legally, but do we need to have it attended would be the issue, I think.
All good questions and ones that we don't know the answers to today,
Right.
but I think it's the silo is iconic, right? It's something you see from a distance. It speaks to the farm, some of the uses of Dayton historically, and I think it's a pretty interesting opportunity. The grain bins aren't just your typical corrugated metal grain bins. You know, they're precast concrete. They're more interesting than some grain bins, certainly, and how they get used, and not 100% sure yet. So certainly open to ideas.
I think we're in pretty
I
good
think
shape
the
for
silo is,
Yeah.
is our number one priority. The grain bins, I'd like to hear more about what can be done there. The stonework, the foundation, I don't see much value there. I'd hate to see it go, but I don't see that we can afford to put a whole bunch of money behind that. And the barn, it's not really a barn, it's a stable. I'm having a hard time grasping that as well, because the roof is in bad shape, and I just don't see,
Well,
correct me if I'm wrong, I just don't see much value
We
in
did
it.
have a structural analysis done on it a few years ago, and it was in pretty good shape. The bones of it are in good shape. The original timbers and the cement concrete floor in there needs some attention. It's moved, but it's still integrally sound, you know. I've been trying to save that thing for a while now and getting pushed back all the time. So I would like to save it if we could. I don't know that we will get it listed as a historic building. We've gone down that path once before, and we got a negative response to it being actually deemed as a historic building in that site. It's not different enough for them to include on their register, although the old town hall is included on the register now of historic buildings. But this one, we couldn't find anything that separated it out enough to make it to the list. So, and to find grant funding for barns is just about impossible. There's nobody willing to put grant funding out there currently. I've been checking for the last 4 or 5 years, and I can't find anything that is going to help us with that at all.
Now, the town hall, there was rumor at one time that we were going to move that over to the site.
That has a bunch of different challenges for it. If we move it off its current site, then it's no longer listed. It has to be in the site.
It has to be on
Or it has to be in its original site or somewhere that corresponds to that original site, one way or another. So you can't just pick it up and move it to somewhere else.
so we have to come up with another park.
Well, I don't know. Well, around the building. You could take out half of the cornfield there, I'm sure. But yeah, there's a few challenges with that, but we'll see.
Okay.
There's a place up in Battle Lake, Minnesota. It's got a green bin. I can see the pictures here, but it's called the 1910 Sip House. What they did is they took an old grain bin and they planted apple trees around it.
Cool.
And they turned it into a really cool place that has live music, beverages, overlooks the lake right there, kind of a cool spot. I don't know if that's something we could do and play in with the river. I don't know if the city has anything to do with any type of a business like that, but just kind of cool to be able to keep the grain bins there and have a business that brings in revenue for the city.
It's in Battle Lake?
Yeah, it's called the 1910 Sip House, and they literally just took grain bins that were there, and these people bought some land on the lake, and they had some apple trees, and they just put in more apple trees and more apple trees, and now they've got like kind of a happening place where people are coming for live music and just kind of a cool spot in the area.
So are they making cider there with the
Yeah.
apples?
Yeah.
Cool.
And they've got cider, but then they've got all sorts of they've got a huge garden there as well, right? So they're selling all sorts of other products. So I was thinking if we're trying to figure out what to do with the land, maybe could be, another source of revenue for the city.
It's always challenging when you have municipalities versus private businesses. I know Minneapolis fights it with their food vendors in some of their parks, and it seems like there's always controversy associated with it. But if you could create a venue like that had live music and brought people to the park, that'd be awfully neat.
You've seen what's happened with obviously the Mississippi Crossing, and it's been such a cool thing to.
Yeah.
It pains me to go support Champlin rather than Dayton, but I mean it's pretty awesome what's going on, and just taking advantage of the area, all the people that come through. So
Right. when I was looking at the drawing that's up on the screen, the idea of an outdoor classroom or performance area backed by the grain bins, it's a neat idea. And then I was wondering, well, is it conflicting with what we've already built, with the stage and the seating over here? How does that play off of each other? I'd like to find a way to use these and incorporate them into the park, but you have to have that critical mass. You have to have enough people on this side too, so that you're not creating something over here that's different. Someday, when this performance area or structure goes, and, that could be really awesome. And as I said, it's a really big price tag. So we have to have enough stuff going on to make that worth it, and have the financial logistics figured out. And how is it rented? What's it rented for? How many events are you having? Wedding venues are great, Friday, Saturday, and sometimes Sunday. But what are they the other 4 days of the week? And
Have we thought through that entertainment center?
it was just part of the master plan.
Right.
It's part 5, right, Marty?
Second?
Isn't that like part 5?
I'm not sure where that is. It's going to be somewhere out towards the end, but I think that we should try and put something on the CIP, maybe for towards the end of that. Yeah.
And then once we have some consensus and some additional thoughts about how this, I think then we combine that into one current master plan.
Yeah.
So that we don't lose sight of this project. I think that's still a really great idea. I should have included it on this drawing. I'm sorry I didn't. But the idea of this being, rentable wedding venue type space, family reunion type space. But I see that building being different than the park shelter that we talked about earlier. This is more of a summer only type thing, and this would be a year-round use type thing. What are your thoughts about the idea of a fairly significant? I see it as a fairly significant park shelter. There's actually other areas within this wooded area. This one was more, picnic, a single family rather than a family reunion. What do you think about that idea?
I like it.
I think the shelters are important. I think we need a large pavilion that can generate some income year-round on that site. And that could be the right-hand part of your plan there.
This area.
And and then just pick 2 or 3 picnic shelters on the west side.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I kind of glossed through the narrative, but those are just one person's broad brush ideas, just to get the conversation going and hopefully pique your interest or get you thinking about different ideas. I think it's really important that the Park Commission weigh in on the future phases here. There's been some turnover both on the commission and at the staff level, and we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page and working towards the same goal. Master plans are changeable documents. There's some things that we had to do as part of phase 2, like this area in green and purple was used as a place to lose a bunch of fill that was present on the site. So this area is different now. It's actually really beautiful. It's some rolling terrain, and the idea here is that there's some mown trails and maybe some native plantings that kind of get you out in nature, photo opportunities, things like that. Just creating reasons for people to come here. Although I am impressed. I drive by here fairly often, and it's getting more and more traffic all the time. So that's a good thing.
West side's open to the public now?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Well,
Yeah.
phase 1, we
Phase
did
1.
take the barricades down.
Yeah,
I didn't see any
barricades are
barricades when I drove by, and I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if
Yeah.
that was intentional.
The
or
barricades are down on the new entrance there, so people can access it there.
I'll
There's
check
still
it
going to
out.
be some
work going on in there
Sure.
for seeding and stuff like that, but I don't see any reason why people can't access through that.
Cool.
And just a quick comment about we've drawn up a detail for a decorative gate that would block this off. Hennepin County had some heartburn over 2 entrance points, so now that this is built and connected, we want to get people to come in here, and then they can come and make this loop and come back out. The sight distances are a lot better from this entrance than they are over here. People come over that hill coming from the east pretty fast. So
that second entrance is going to be what they call a controlled entrance. So if you've got a big event there, then we can open that up, or for emergency management services.
The second entrance is the barn, the old house entrance.
It's
with
what-
the columns, the stone columns right here.
the original, yeah.
The current original entrance.
It's actually pretty narrow between those columns, and it's a good secondary entrance, but we want to push people to this location. Other comments, questions?
The future river access, so is the river access part of the trail project then?
That'd be the water trail
The water
project.
trails.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was never intended to be a boat launch. It's carry-on canoe, kayak, water access.
The water's pretty thin there, so
Yep.
it might not be existent right now. I don't know.
All right. I kind of like your Four Corners Park. I label it Sundance Woods because that's probably the closest development activity. This is 4 different property corners. This is why the neighborhood park was proposed here, so that we could get a little bit of park dedication from the 4 different development opportunities to create the larger park entity. The northwest corner is the only one that is currently platted. So we know what our park boundaries are there. I acquired concept plans from the developer working on the northeast corner, and this was the sketch that they provided, the CAD drawing. So that's a little more real, but certainly not final. And then the southwest and southeast quadrant are basically just artistic license, our best guess as to what you might want to get to create the overall park amenity. So it is bisected by the high voltage power line that goes through here. So the pink shaded area, there's a couple poles that, one right here and one right here that the north-south trail would loop around. And then I just threw in, hopefully with some reality, they are to scale, but some of the typical park features. But we want you to weigh in on what you might want to do next. At Hayden Hills, we had pickleball and a golf feature, kind of respecting the history of the Hayden Hills golf course. So there is pickleball shown here so that you can see from a size standpoint. This is a full-size basketball court, and this is a double tennis court. We haven't done any tennis in Dayton recently. You have them where? Do you have tennis anywhere?
No.
Okay. We did get some ask for that in Hayden Hills. It really wasn't big enough, wasn't right at that time. Tennis courts are expensive. Tennis had waned in popularity. Pickleball is more popular. The important thing to remember about neighborhood parks is that they're not necessarily the scheduled athletic fields. So this is a potential ball field with a backstop, not unlike what we did at Hayden. There's a little more room here. You could create an actual playable ball field on this park site. Hayden, we didn't have enough room. This is a full-size soccer field, so you can see. One of the questions or comments I'll make is this might be more land than we ultimately need here. And since we haven't acquired it via park dedication, you could shrink those 2 south quadrants a little bit. If you weren't interested in doing pickleball, or you weren't interested in having a larger ball field complex, soccer complex. we could take a little bit less land and then you get more cash through park dedication. So east-west is a little harder. Who knows how long the golf course will remain. Obviously there's development pressures around that and plans, but at some point we'll be able to compile a pretty good piece of acreage here. So,
Pickleball courts are always packed, right?
what's that?
Pickleball courts are always packed right now.
They do get a lot of use. I actually took my daughter to Hayden Hills on Saturday morning, and we were the only two there. I don't know how much they get used in the evenings because I'm on the other northwest corner of town, so I don't go through there.
That's only because I knew you were going there.
Yeah. Let me tell you, I dominated her that day. I mean, it was 5-0. So. She was surprised. She thought I'd wither faster. But, pickleball has gotten to the point where a lot of people are playing it, and I think you'll continue to get pressure to add pickleball courts. Mm-hmm. Having two is always nice. We don't have a tournament facility in town, and maybe we don't need one yet, but 6 or 8 courts lighted are very popular in other areas of the metro. This is a very big play area. I did not try to, this is a CAD drawing with some color on it, but it's not a final plan by any stretch. It's really just to get you thinking. Your comments about the trails and the priorities, a lot of times when we do budgeting for the neighborhood parks, some money comes out of the trails because we have to pay for the loop trails. We work really hard to create these loops because people love them. So as you think about spending all of that trail fund, recognize that you're going to have new neighborhood parks and hopefully a community playfield someday that will need some of those dollars. Are there new things that you've seen, things that you're hearing from your neighbors or on the council to your constituents that people are clamoring for? I know there's interest in the community playfield. This is not that facility. That's a much bigger deal. Marty and I have had conversations about irrigation lately and some of the challenges of growing grass over the last 2 or 3 droughty summers. These are not typically irrigated parks, so people's expectations about what the grass is and how good it can be, it's been really tough to grow grass the last few years.
I think that from what I see, I'll go back to pickleball. Now it's been out there for a while. Now we see people beginning to separate. The real good players don't want to play with these munchkins down here. And so now you've got basically one facility over here, and then everybody else plays over here. And that's just the segregation that I've seen. And it's what's happening today, and we have to embrace that.
I think what we've got to remember also, these are neighborhood parks, and they're not going to be where you hold a competition necessarily. You don't have the parking or the facilities for that. So if we wanted to include something like that, that would be in the bigger park that we're talking about, the community park, would be an area where you would put that kind of pickleball arrangement in, I would think.
With not knowing the future of Sundance Golf Course, we talked about what happened over in Hayden with doing something golf. What about like a mini golf course from a artificial turf perspective? So no maintenance, and potential for revenue to come in. There's nothing really in this area that has mini golf. I think most people end up going to Lilliput and Coon Rapids, which is quite a long ways away, and there's so many young families. If we could have some sort of a, something that could be a revenue source would be kind of cool. And then it's low maintenance because it's all artificial.
I think there was some discussion among staff and at the council level about the golf element. It was an alternate when we bid Hayden Hills, and we ended up accepting it, and it turned out really nice. I'm an avid golfer, and as soon as it was built, I had my clubs in my truck, and I went out and gave it a test run, and I did see people using that on Saturday morning, which was kind of cool. So I don't think that's something that goes in every park, but mini golf, if you could figure out a way to staff it and generate that revenue. Mini golf is limited maintenance, but there's always maintenance to keep it, something that people would pay to play. So the staffing is probably the challenge there.
Yep.
Unless there's something else around that you could commit to having somebody there and what the hours are. So there is a little bit of opportunity for parking. It's hidden under the pink shading, but there's about, what do I have, 21 stalls in just a simple dead-end parking lot coming off the north. I think that's the only area that we had really considered parking. Hayden Hills has the parallel on the south side. That works well. I used to be the park planner for the city of Maple Grove. We put in 20-plus stalls on every park, and to be honest, it was too much. There's just not a need unless you have an amenity like a competitive use playfield or a mini golf or something that would drive. There's just not that many people that need to drive to these facilities. So I show it, but I would caution you to do as little parking as you think you might need. Now, if you are trying to schedule this as a rentable softball field, for youth sports or something, then you need the parking. Absolutely. So.
I think you ought to double the pickleball area here.
Get 4 courts in there?
Yep.
I think the city might need that, and if you do it, I would try to light it, because you're entering the time of year. I hate this time of summer. I'm a golfer and gardener, and I hate it when the days start getting shorter, but you have a lot of nice weather, after hours where you want some lighting. I'm not sure how the neighbors would feel about that, but if you put it in early enough before those neighbors build around and advertise it as such, this will be lighted, then at least they're educated buyers. So, and you'd have to cut it off at a reasonable hour, whether that's 10 or 9 p.m. or something. The lighting costs for even a 4 or 6 court pickleball isn't huge, but you have to have the power nearby.
Potential to do solar lights too? Or do you need more than that?
Potential, but yeah. I mean, to do enough lighting for competitive use, probably not. You're quiet over there, Councilman. It's easy to show stuff on a plan. It gets a little harder when you start making it real. And we can't make it real until we know what the developers are doing. But it's important to have a plan for this so that we can go to them and say, no, we've looked at it. This is how much land we need. Developers always push back. They don't want to give up the land because it's very valuable, but state law says they have to through park dedication. So having a plan, knowing what could go in there is an important part of that process. You'll get many more opportunities to take a look at the layout, but be thinking about what that next new thing that you might want to try in the Dayton park system might be.
Very good. Thank you.
Anything else?
I think that covers it.
Amenities, is that what we're up to?
Yep. So this is an amenities list that we worked on some time ago. This was the brainchild of David Klein, I believe. We had a list of just about everything on here. Ice climbing and what was it, rodeo grounds and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And what I wanted to do was try and get a more reasonable list of things that are achievable. I think that's the direction from the Park Commission last time that we spoke. I went through the lines in yellow are the ones that I figure are probably unrealistic, or I don't understand what they are like the team building course. I'm not sure what that would be, if it's an assault course type deal, or I don't know what that would be. But I took a stab at it, and then if you guys want to take some other things out, we could take them out, and then we're going to have to figure out how we use this document, or if it is even worthwhile having. I know that we did this and it never got used at all.
Hate to do anything and not use it at all.
I think pairing it with a map would be really cool. That's one thing I've seen other communities do. You look at a map and they go, I want to go to a playground with my kids. Not every park's going to have one. You can cross-reference.
Yeah, I think that's a different thing to this. I think this is a list of amenities that we want to see in Dayton.
Okay.
It's not where we have them currently, although we can link it to what you're talking about for sure.
Okay. Does the color of the text have any meaning, or just highlighted yellow?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think it did at one time, but I think that got lost somewhere along the line.
Oh, I think it's the category. Different categories are different colors.
Oh, that's what, yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about item 38 and how that works.
River surfing.
River surfing.
I have no idea.
Well, that sure was interesting. Well, let's go through the top and just go through it quickly and see if we can eliminate. You highlighted in yellow, right?
Yeah, those are the ones that I didn't think were doable. I don't know where we would do ice climbing.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you highlighted. I don't think that we need that on here.
What did you mean ice skating oval and warming house in Central Park and in Sundance?
There's we put a temporary ice rink up in Sundance whenever we can. This year didn't work out because the weather was just not conducive to ice making for us anyway.
You're not planning on making ice?
Well, let's see what the weather does. That's the controlling factor for us. When you get rain all the way through the winter, it makes it tough.
It's just way too warm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think some of the purpose of this list was to, we just had a presentation from Paul.
Right.
This could go in there. What do you think about this kind of an idea in that? So that I think was the purpose of this list, but I just don't think it's at the front of people's minds when we do these concept plans.
Yeah, I could see it being useful as like a menu, like, oh yeah, what should?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a thing you can put in a park that you're not always thinking about, but it's feasible.
I would also maybe put out there that you think less about how many different options we have and more about how do we make sure that we have really good options. Mm-hmm. So like if we're going to have a sledding hill or a pollinator garden or pickleball courts, we've got really good pickleball courts in Dayton. So Dayton's known for really good pickleball courts. Versus saying Dayton's got 70,000 things you can do, but they're all kind of like dying pollinator gardens, right? Like it's not really helping anything to have them when there's nothing there. And so that'd be my caution of maybe a proponent of saying it might make sense to whittle this this down a little bit into what makes the most sense for Dayton.
Don't see too many horseshoe pits anymore. They're too dangerous.
And you're supposed to take the horseshoes off the horse before you start throwing them.
Oh, man, is that what you're doing? No wonder.
So you want us to start telling you things that we should probably take off?
Yeah, I think that's what we should do, and then I can pull this together.
What is Gaga Ball?
Gaga ball is that. It's like
Okay.
6. It's a hexagon.
I googled it. I've seen it now that I just didn't know it had a name.
What item are you talking about?
The Gaga
Number
ball.
12.
I don't know. My kids loved it when they were.
Yeah, it's like a foursquare and a pen kind of thing. Maybe.
Yeah.
Is that Lady Gaga?
That was my first thought. No relation, I don't think, though.
I see.
The driving range listed at Dayton Golf. What is that? Item 9.
Yeah, that's. I think that there's a
This would
couple
be
of
Daytona.
driving ranges already in
At the golf course.
Daytona Golf. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
gotcha.
not sure if there's still one at Sundance.
Yeah, there is.
Yep, they both have one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, BMX biking areas. Are we really gonna put that in here in Dayton?
I don't think so. Three Rivers has a pretty decent one just
Yeah.
in Elm Creek that people seem to like.
It would take a lot to make something like that really good, so I think that could come off. So I don't know much about lacrosse. Can that be played on the same type of field as a soccer? Because like you were
That's-
asking about that one park, I'm just wondering, do we have any lacrosse fields? Because I
Yeah,
know
we
a
do
lot
have-
of our
they play
neighborhood
back there
kids
quite a bit.
are playing it.
Behind here, they use that for lacrosse.
Okay.
They used to use it for a lot of soccer, but early season soccer is somewhere else now, and they play lacrosse early season, then soccer through the summer league out here.
It's getting more and more popular.
Yeah, so
Lacrosse.
that's why I was kind of just curious about the new park.
You know,
it's certainly narrow, yeah, we just did the 24 feet to match that to the north.
There's so little traffic on it that my wife drove down the other day. She saw 24 people going on that road. While she was
Really?
yeah, she counted it was just busy.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know why. It's like,
I,
good, I'm glad people are using it. That's all I care about.
I suspect when the connection gets made to the interchange that it's going to scatter.
Oh, it's gonna go
so
through the
I think
roof.
all the, probably just people that locally lived there for a while, but even then, probably some additional cut through after that.
I take it anytime I'm going south because I can avoid North Diamond and Dayton Road, and I can avoid Pineview and Dayton Road, and I hate those intersections to passion. So if I'm going south, I just go that way. It's an
Yeah.
extra like 3 minutes, but it's a pretty drive. So
Yeah.
maybe in the winter I'll change my mind when the snow's blowing across there, but
Sure.
this time of year it's a pretty drive to the cornfield. So
That was always my winter route when I worked in Maple Grove. I
Oh,
was
is
going
it?
back that way because I had four-wheel drive and I
Yep.
grew up in a far northwest corner of the state and I wasn't worried
Yeah.
about getting stuck in a snow drift.
yeah.
And yeah, it was the low flow of traffic.
It's also good, I think, too, because if you live in Sundance Woods, your voting place is the Public Works building. So you have to go all the way around to get there, or people will go to the dirt road. So I talked to the farmers, like, yeah, there'd be a line of cars, just people don't know how to drive on dirt roads. Trying to go 50 down that road, bounce all around the place.
We had some of the best walkboarding.
Oh, man.
No, because that road is
Poor
horrible.
Sparks, he'd be out there working all day and it rained, or 2 days later, just breaking your teeth as you're driving down the road again. It was awful. Yeah.
We were driving back from Colorado this past weekend, and the GPS taking us we stopped in Sioux City on the way back overnight, and it took us on this like half-mile dirt road, and it was just like that. I'm like, why is the GPS taking me on this road? When the way out it didn't take us that way, and the way back it did. So I don't know what changed, but I was like, okay, whatever. We're already on this road, I'm not turning around.
All right, I think we're back up and running.
Okay, so if we could continue, could we say that everything in yellow is going to be eliminated? Is there anybody that wants something that is in yellow that we want put back on the list?
I'm fine eliminating.
Yep, I think
Okay.
eliminate the yellow.
Is there anything in red that we ought to eliminate that's not in yellow?
Trap shooting and BMX biking.
Trap.
30.
5 and 30.
30.
BMX is 5.
We all good with that?
Is the archery, is that a little redundant with what we have right there with Elm Creek?
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
so.
Probably can eliminate that one.
I'd say so. Sand court volleyball.
Well, we were talking about putting that in
That's Stevens.
at Stevens. I think it's a good idea.
Especially if you have people doing picnics and that kind of stuff already there. If that's kind of the idea, I think that most family picnics include sand volleyball. It's a pretty low I mean, it's not real intense cost, I would imagine, right? Is skateboarding still something that's on the rise? Or because I feel like for me, when I look at it from a insurance or liability standpoint, with head injuries and that kind of stuff, if maybe just avoid that one. There's one in Champlin. They can go there. I don't know about you guys, but just like it just seems like it could be kind of a
I don't
nasty
disagree,
injury
yeah.
waiting to happen.
Do you have a consensus on that?
Skateboarding.
I'm fine taking it off.
Yeah, fine removing that.
How about 35 through 40? All okay there?
Yeah. Going back to 28 though, is tetherball that pole with the one rope? I think that that's kind of dangerous with little kids and ropes getting stuck around necks. I don't know, that's something that I wouldn't mind seeing off the list.
Keep the liability as low as possible is always my thought.
Well, you learn to duck.
That is
We
true.
could add dodgeball then too.
So we want to take away tetherball?
28, yeah.
We have consensus on that? Yeah?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an option, but I'll go along with it, I guess. I'm not going to play it, so.
I think you should, Doug. I think you
Yeah.
And river surfing.
Yeah, I'm going to be the first water surfer. Okay, how about 40 to 50?
I mean, I think a dog park could be nice, but there's plenty in the area too with Elm Creek as one.
I'd strike dog park.
Everybody? We good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, how about 50 to 60?
Well, multi-purpose shelters we've been talking about. That's kind of like that picnic area.
Yeah.
Probably keep that. Yeah, I don't know that we need those as specific things that we.
I mean, isn't 35, 36, and 53 all kind of similar?
Sure. Yeah, I see that.
We're just talking about like a covered area where people can gather. And
Yeah, good
eat.
pavilion.
So 53 we can eliminate because it's covered in 35? Or
I think we got rid of 35.
you got to leave that? I'd leave that alone.
Like one of them, though, I think important to have called out. But otherwise, I think that chunk of them could probably go.
Water slides.
Really a liability.
You need a water park first, and then.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that can go.
I mean,
What, 63? Going?
Yeah.
put a slide out in the river.
Marty, did you know the cost associated with the splash pad?
Yeah.
Is it wild?
Yeah, it's pretty expensive to run a splash
I
pad.
know Central Park has one and Andrews Park has one,
Yeah.
so I think we're probably.
We need one, but
We have a council member who's very strong about having,
He just has to win the lottery, like he keeps talking
Yeah.
about, and
Yeah.
we'll get
Yeah.
one in the city. That's what he keeps saying.
so a splash pad is there for him, so
Yeah. No,
I think it'll be
I
good
like
for-
the idea of it, but the fact that we already have two that are 10
Yeah.
to 15 minutes away, and
I think you also could look at this too as like there'll be a lot more homes in Dayton eventually, right?
Yeah.
So the goal is not to people leave the city to go to places that we could do. So I think
And
I
I
would say having not that we can afford it right now, and I would love it. By the time we get one, my kid will be too old to use the thing. And
Yeah.
I'll roll through it on my wheelchair. So
let me push you.
but if you're still around, Marty, by all
I'm
means.
planning on it.
Good.
there's one thing.
I would leave, as I'm saying.
One thing to note is that one splash pad in town is heated and the other one is not. And boy, you can tell the difference. Oh boy.
interesting. The one in Champlin, though, if we ever do think about doing it, the one in Champlin does actually bring in really good revenue because they run a little ice cream stand right
Yeah,
next to it there.
yeah.
So that's pretty genius. So if you were to ever do it, a good way to subsidize the cost would be to sell a bunch of ice cream novelties and sodas and stuff. To, they crush it with that.
I think that this would be somewhere in the community playfield type thing. I think that would be a good spot for this, because we would have a lot of concession stands there and that kind of thing. This could tie in nicely, like the one in Champlain has. They got that big area there.
Tell me about the zip line in 65.
What about it?
So we're gonna cross Dayton Road.
We have them. Rivers Bend has one. Doug?
Yeah, Rivers Bend. That's one.
Rivers Bend has got a good one.
Yeah.
River
River
I just
Hills.
only lives by River.
They've got it.
Sundowns.
We are currently dealing with an HOA situation in our neighborhood. Our neighbor 2 doors down put one in over the pond, and he was told that he had certain land was his, and the HOA is saying that the land that he put it on was actually the community land, which totally changes all the liability if someone was to get on it and get injured.
Yeah.
And it's a whole nother zip line and pass. Again, lots of paths, lots of things that have no liability.
They get a lot of use at the parks, though. Like, they're constantly being used
Oh,
at
yeah.
our park
At the
and
park.
Rivers
Sure.
Bend.
Yeah.
Up there, they're
Rivers Bend.
constantly being used. The kids love them. They're low to the ground. These aren't like the ones over a pond. These are just
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
This isn't your This isn't a treetop zip line. This is.
This is in the
This is
playground.
like
Yeah.
Yeah.
low metal structures. Yeah.
And kids love them.
Yeah.
They do.
They're great.
One at the Rivers Bend is used an awful lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parents might
And the
even
River
use
Hills
it.
one is nice.
Yep.
Snowshoe trails. I don't know why that snowshoe trail isn't used today, but
Marty, is there a way we can use some like I'm thinking of like Cloquet Overlook Park and the loop there. Can we use that as a snowshoe trail or cross country ski trail or something like that in the winter? I mean, we have the space.
Mm-hmm.
There's no grass growing up right there. We don't plow. Do we plow that loop?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's anything. Yeah, people like to walk their dogs and everything around
Yeah.
there in the winter. So
We could do an LC Stevens though for a little bit too.
yeah.
And the part that's not being used, you could
Yeah.
put a little.
But there's that big open field area
Yeah.
there as well that we could, if we wanted to.
Just draw one up, make a little map, and
Yeah.
But
it would
I
be
don't know
fun if we had
what
something like
how
that.
much grooming we would have to do if it's a cross country skiing thing. I would imagine that there's some grooming and stuff in that.
Yeah, but I don't think snowshoe would require. People would just
Snowshoe would be
snowshoe wherever
fine.
they want. Like all parks are snowshoe parks.
Yeah,
to some extent.
exactly. So
And
I
even
mean,
with a grassy area as a snowshoe park.
yeah, we could use that area there as
Yeah.
a snowshoe park. I don't know. I was just saying if we were doing cross country skiing, that might be a little different element. But
yeah. But the loop at the park over here, Cloquet,
yeah,
is used an awful lot
It
since
is,
we've
yeah.
started plowing it.
yeah. I don't always get. Yeah, we've got a lot of pressure to keep that thing open, and as soon as it's not open after 24 hours of snow, we get a call. And,
Nasty grams.
yeah, you know how that goes.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. We have gone through and marked this up. Is there anything else you need?
No, I'll pull that together as a final document. I think that we should have a copy of that around when we're doing concept plans and stuff like that.
See if you could email the final one to us, then we could probably just pull it out over email when we need. We don't have like a
Absolutely.
shared drive.
I will share that with you guys.
Thank you.
All right, and then let's review Park Commission manual.
Oh, Park Commission manual.
All right, so I went through the Park Commission manual and made all the alterations you guys had asked for. I put them in red. So if you guys have been through that, are there any few more changes, or are we good with what we've got?
Looked great to me.
It looks great to me.
Okay. I think I incorporated everybody's changes.
Good for me. Thank you very much for making those corrections.
So do we need, this is going to go to the council next, do we need a motion and stuff like that to forward this on to the council?
Yes. Do I hear a motion to forward this to the council?
I motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any announcements?
I don't think so.
Dayton Heritage Days is coming up. There's your announcement.
Yeah. September 6th.
Third Saturday in September.
16th, I believe.
17th.
And then there's the Friday night one, which is 15th.
The day before, yep. And that's got like movie and fun in the park at Elsie Stevens.
Yeah.
And then Encanto will be showing, I think.
Yeah.
And then right following Encanto will be fireworks at Elsie Stevens.
And there'll be some food trucks and bouncy houses and stuff like that, I believe.
Magicians, I thought maybe. Too.
Yeah,
Remember?
walking
kind of
music.
walking.
Magician,
strolling.
yeah.
Strolling, that's the word, yes.
Strolling, yeah.
I couldn't think of it. Strolling performers. Yeah.
How do you do that, Zach? Matt?
How to do what?
The
Stroll?
strolling and the magician bit, you know?
It's my life, man.
Can't let the secrets out, huh?
Very good. If that is all, I think I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion is officially adjourned. Thank you.